As everybody is speculating about oil companies and the billionaires behind them pushing Donald Trump to attack Venezuela. After all, oil and gas companies and executives gave, what was it, $96 million to Donald Trump and Republicans during the 2024 campaign. I keep thinking about not only what Vladimir Putin loves to do to oligarchs, but also the history of oligarchs in 1930s and 40s Germany. I don't know if you're like me with 118 open tabs on your laptop, but there's one that I have had saved since February. It's a piece from The Atlantic, and it is entitled "The Oligarchs Who Came to Regret Supporting Hitler." And boy, I've really been thinking about it today. It's by Timothy W. Ryback. It came out on February 6th, 2025, and I want to share a little bit of it with you here. It's not behind a paywall, unlike a lot of Atlantic articles, so I really encourage you to go read the whole thing. He was among the richest men in the world. He made his first fortune in heavy industry. He made his second as a media mogul. And in 1933, in exchange for a political favor, Alfred Hugenberg provided the electoral capital that made possible Adolf Hitler's appointment as chancellor. Boy, that doesn't sound like Elon Musk, does it? Before Hugenberg sealed his pact with Hitler, a close associate had warned him that this was a deal he would come to regret. One night you will find yourself running through the ministry gardens in your underwear, trying to escape arrest. In the 1920s and early 30s, the Hitler brand was anathema to capitalists and corporate elites. His National Socialist German Workers' Party was belligerently nationalistisch, but also unapologetically sozialistisch, a true Arbeiterpartei, a working man's party. Please don't judge me on my German. Its 25-point political platform explicitly targeted bankers and financiers, calling for breaking the bondage of interest, as well as industrialists who profited from wartime production. Profits were to be confiscated by the state without compensation, and corporate executives charged with treason. Platform point 13 was explicit. We demand the nationalization of all existing corporate entities. This made Hitler's politics pretty unpalatable to capitalists, to businessmen in Germany throughout the 1920s. They preferred to support conservative or centrist, business-friendly political parties, like the right-wing pro-business German Nationalist Party or the Bavarian People's Party, etc. But then there was this group of socialites that were drawn to Hitler. I don't understand. Like I've watched speeches that he's given. I don't understand the charisma. I know people also think that Donald Trump is charismatic. I don't understand the appeal. But a number of German socialites throughout the 20s and early 30s were drawn to Hitler, including Victoria von Dirksen, Helene Bechstein, Elsa Bruchmann, and most importantly, Fritz Thyssen. Thyssen, who is the heir to Germany's leading industrial fortunes, had been an early financier of the Nazi movement. He met Hitler in the early 20s at a beer rally, and he was like blown away, I guess, with Hitler's skills as an orator. He felt like he could command a crowd. He was so impressed, he gave Hitler the equivalent of $5 million in today's money and helped finance the acquisition and refurbishment of a Munich palace as the Nazi Party headquarters. Most importantly, he arranged for Hitler to speak to his fellow industrialists in Dusseldorf in 1932. This is where Alfred Hugenberg comes on the scene. He had served as director of a large steelmaker and arms manufacturer, and then he founded the Telegraph Union, a 1,400-strong associated conglomerate of newspapers that intended to provide a conservative bulwark against the liberal pro-democracy press. That sounds a little bit like Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times, Fox News. Take your pick. Hugenberg was called the great disseminator of National Socialist ideals to an entire nation through newspapers, books, magazines, and films. Oh, that sounds a little bit like Rupert Murdoch there. Oh gosh, I know they say history doesn't repeat itself, but Hugenberg practiced what he liked to call Katastrophenpolitik, the politics of catastrophe, by which he sought to polarize public opinion in the political parties with incendiary news stories. Some of them entirely fabricated articles intended to cause confusion and outrage. That definitely sounds like Fox News. It also sounds like right-wing social media grifters and that whole ecosystem right now. Nick Shirley? Anybody? According to one such story, the government was enslaving German teenagers and selling them to its allies in order to service its war debt. Boy, take your pick. Pizzagate, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, the current Minnesota daycare scandal. all of the waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government that Elon Musk was going to rat out. Like, there's just endless lists of stories that could very well have been published in Hugenberg's German newspapers in the 30s. Hugenberg calculated that by hollowing out the political center, political consensus would become impossible and the democratic system would collapse. As a right-wing delegate to the Reichstag, Hugenberg proposed a freedom law that called for the liberation of the German people from the shackles of democracy and from the onerous provisions of the Versailles Treaty. The law called for the treaty signatories to be tried and hanged for treason, along with government officials involved with implementing the treaty provisions. The French ambassador in Berlin called Hugenberg one of the most evil geniuses of Germany. Though Hitler and Hugenberg were both fiercely anti-communist, anti-democratic, anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, their attempts at political partnership failed spectacularly and repeatedly. Well, this definitely sounds like Trump and Elon Musk. The problem lay not in ideological differences, but in the similarity of their temperaments and their competing political aspirations. Like Hitler, Hugenberg was inflexible, stubborn, and self-righteous. When challenged, he doubled down. Hugenberg himself had spoken of the Third Reich as early as 1919, well before Hitler was a force on the political scene, and he envisioned himself as a regent of the Reich. His followers greeted him with Heil Hugenberg. Joseph Goebbels noted that Hitler invariably emerged from his meetings with Hugenberg red-faced and, quote, mad as shit. That definitely sounds like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Now, the two became very quickly politically completely entangled. Hugenberg delivered Hitler the chancellorship, and in exchange, he was supposed to be given a cabinet seat. Sounds a little bit like Elon Musk and Doge, right? Hugenberg's calculus was seen as the following: Hitler will sit in the saddle, but Hugenberg holds the whip. At the time, the New York Times expressed astonishment that Hugenberg, an arch-capitalist who stood in strongest discord with the economic doctrines of the Nazi movement, would be in charge of the country's finances and moving with a socialist Hitler. Hugenberg called himself an economic dictator. He purged ministries, he dismantled workers' rights. Oh, remember how Donald Trump tried to end collective bargaining for federal union employees? He lowered the wages of his own employees 10%. Hugenberg argued that the poorest should have to suffer for a while in order to achieve their ends. Over time, Hitler no longer needed Hugenberg's corporate contracts or his support because all of these other bankers and industrialists that had previously shunned Hitler as a right-wing extremist had gradually come to embrace him. Sort of what we're seeing right now that's happening. So many CEOs, so many wealthy men are coming around Donald Trump and supporting him because they think that they'll get pardons. They think that they'll get lucrative government contracts. They think that it will serve them personally to support fascism. More and more German corporations got on board, helping retool the Weimar Republic as the Third Reich. Porsche designed the Volkswagen, a car for the people. Mercedes-Benz provided Hitler and his chief lieutenants with bulletproof sedans. Hugo Boss designed the SS uniforms. Allianz provided insurance for the concentration camps. J.A. Topf & Sons manufactured crematoria ovens. At the time, an executive at Deutsche Bank said, "I fear we are embarking on a well-planned path toward the annihilation of all Jews in Germany." All of these industrialists, all of these businesses helped finance Hitler's government, and they all benefited from lucrative contracts, not unlike CoreCivic, Geo Group, Oracle, Palantir, Starlink. The unexpected return on the investment in Hitler's government came in the form of slave labor. The electronics giant Siemens employed more than 80,000 slave laborers provided by Hitler. Pharmaceutical company Bayer purchased women for medical experiments. They all died. They all died during those experiments. And looking at billionaires right now and what they're doing to support Donald Trump, I can't help but think of this line: they were the magicians who made the fantasies of Mein Kampf come true. But many of the oligarchs who crossed Hitler, Thyssen, Schacht, and others, ended up in concentration camps themselves. In 1946, Hugenberg was arrested by the British military police. While he received a fairly light punishment, he was stripped of virtually all of his business empire. I don't know, I feel like there's more threads I want to pull at here in the way that oligarchy and fascism go hand in hand, the way that capitalism promotes fascism. We've been here before and it hasn't ended well for the super rich and corporations then. How can we make sure it doesn't end well for them this